Mr. Devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All goes Sri Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. Arati Maji, when are you ready? You can start, Maji. I'll share my screen.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Cheva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet Nastapráyeshu Patreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Sloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nestiki. We are reading from Canto 3, Chapter 20, Conversation between Maitreya and Vidura. Starting at text 14. Text 14. Separately, unable to produce the material universe, they combined with the help of the energy of the Supreme Lord and were able to produce a shining egg. Text 15. For over 1,000 years, the shiny egg lay on the waters of the causal ocean in the lifeless state. Then the Lord entered it as Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. Text 16. From the navel of the personality of Godhead, Garbhodakshaya Vishnu sprouted a lotus flower, effulgent like 1,000 blazing suns. This lotus flower is the reservoir of all conditioned souls, and the first living entity who came out of the lotus flower was the omnipotent Brahma. Text 17. When that Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is laying on the Garbhodaka ocean, entered the heart of Brahma, Brahma brought his intelligence to bear, and with the intelligence invoked, he began to create the universe as it was before. Text 18. First of all, Brahma created from his shadow the coverings of ignorance of the conditioned souls. They are 5 in number and are called Tamishra, Andatamishra, Tamas, Moha, and Maha Moha. Text 19. Out of disgust, Brahma threw off the body of ignorance, and taking this opportunity, Yakshas and Rakshasas sprang for possession of the body, which continued to exist in the form of night. Night is the source of hunger and thirst. Text 20. Overpowered by hunger and thirst, they ran to devour Brahma from all sides and cried, "Spare him not, eat him up." Text 21. Brahma, the head of the demigods, full of anxiety, asked them, "Do not eat me, but protect me. You are born from me and have become my sons. Therefore, you are Yakshas and Rakshasas." Text 22. He then created the chief demigods who were shining with the glory of goodness. He dropped before them the effulgent form of daytime, and the demigods sportingly took possession of it. Text 23. Lord Brahma then gave birth to the demons from his buttocks, and they were very fond of sex. Because they were too lustful, they approached him for copulation. Text 24. The worshipful Brahma first laughed at their stupidity, but finding the shameless Asuras close upon him, he grew indignant and ran in great haste out of fear. Text 25. He approached the personality of Godhead, who bestows all boons and who dispels the agony of his devotees and of those who take shelter of his lotus feet. He manifests his innumerable transcendental forms for the satisfaction of his devotees. Text 26. Approaching the Lord, addressed him thus, "My Lord, please protect me from these sinful demons who were created by me under your order. They are infuriated by an appetite for sex and have come to attack me. Thank you very much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Mataji. Hare Krishna. So, I'll have to briefly prayers. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanamine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaurvani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay. It's a interesting section in the Srimad Bhagavatam where we are hearing one more time about the secondary creation by Lord Brahma. So basically, as the chapter progressed, this chapter in the last session we heard from Sundaracharya Prabhu, we're in the third canto, 20th chapter. We're still hearing the conversation between Maitreya Muni and Vidura. That's the conversation going on almost close to the beginning of third canto. This conversation will continue till the end of the fourth canto. So, in that we heard how Sonakrishi, in the beginning of this chapter, um, Sonakrishi expressed his desire to hear Krishna Katha more and more. Especially, he wanted to hear the conversation. What else? Vidura asked more questions from Maitreya Muni. What did they discuss like that? That was one of the main questions they asked. And the second question he asked is, uh, how did the creation continue? Swayambhu Manu and creation continue? Because the previous chapters talked about, a lot of chapters talked about the Varaha incarnation from the sixth Manvantara. So now they are coming back to the first Manvantara, which is managed by Swayambhu Manvantara, Swayambhu Manu. So he asked that questions, and then in that Sutta Goswami is referring to the conversation between Vidura and Maitreya, where Vidura asked the questions about creation, Brahma's creation specifically. Then Maitreya Muni, instead of starting at Brahma's creation, he briefly summarizes, like we heard in Friday session, that he briefly summarizes the primary creation done by the Supreme Lord. Because unless Supreme Lord gives the basic ingredients, Brahma cannot do the creation. Because it's described in our terms, Supreme Lord gave the raw ingredients for the creation and also the blueprint for the creation or the design, like an architect gives a design, like that he gave the design for creation. And then Brahma used those ingredients to do the secondary creation or visarga that he is in charge of. So that's what is described. So one of the key element that we understood from that section of the this Bhagavatam here, and also this was discussed in the 5th and 6th chapters also. So what we understand there is that unless Supreme Lord is there, Supreme Lord's involvement is there, either directly or through one of his energies, nothing can move like that. That is one of the principle we learned. Same thing is emphasized here, that because Supreme Lord, the main ingredients of the creation are created. And then Lord Brahma continues with the secondary creation. So with that understanding, we'll go further from today's verse, 14th verse. So let me share my screen also. I'll keep my book. So you can see the verses as we discussed. So now until the previous verse, how the primary creation into the foundation, especially the last verse, were discussing about how 5 material elements were created: earth, water, fire, air, and ether. And then also how the 5 knowledge acquiring senses that we have are coming, and then 5 working senses that we have are come, and then 5 sense objects which are more subtle have appeared. Like that is described. In fact, the purport says for the previous verse, the 5 demigods who are controlling in this material nature, material world also are came out through this primary creation of the Supreme Lord, like that. Now, after these fundamental elements got created, then in this 14th verse is described, all these elements are existing separately. but only when Supreme Lord empowered them. When Supreme Lord, with the help of Supreme Lord's energy, cohesive energy specifically. Cohesive energy means like a binding agent like that. So with the cohesive energy, so that they can stay together, they all combined and became a shining egg. That means now at this point, the universe was formed basically. And section in this section is described. Yeah, there's no purport for this one. Next verse is described. So now, for over 1000 years, the shiny egg lay. Shiny egg means here is universe. Is laying on top of Karna ocean, it seems, in the lifeless state. Why is lifeless state? Because no jivas have entered yet, including the Supreme Lord has not entered yet. That's why it's in the lifeless state. It's just matter. Then, that time, the Lord entered each of the universe as Garbhodaksa Vishnu. Until now, is called as Karnadaksa Vishnu form. So now, in the purport says, it appears that all the universes are floating on the causal ocean, basically, until this time. So now, Supreme Lord, in his form as Garbhodaka Sai Vishnu, entered into the universes now. So now, what is going on is a description of one universe, but the same thing is happening for other universes also. But we're following through one universe and one Brahma like that. So now going to text 16. From the navel of the Garbhodaka Sai Vishnu, from his stomach navel, a lotus flower came out, and that lotus flower was effulgent like 1,000 blazing suns, it seems. Interestingly, this lotus flower is described as a reservoir of all conditioned souls. So basically, we know the material creation goes through cycles of creation, maintenance, and then annihilation. So, and we also know at the end of annihilation, when the material world is annihilated, specifically material universe is annihilated, then all the souls go back to the Karnadaksha Vishnu and they stay in his belly. So in this purport, Prabhupada is explaining to us, those conditioned souls who were in the stomach of Supreme Lord, they actually manifested in terms of a lotus flower now. Like that, Prabhupada is explaining to us in the purport. And then, because those all conditioned souls are there in that lotus flower, that is why there's a effulgence is coming like 1,000 blazing suns. How is that explained by Prabhupada? Remember, we all know that Supreme Lord, Krishna or Vishnu, from their body comes a lot of effulgence, bright light, and that we call it as Brahma Jyoti. Similarly, even the jivas have some effulgence because they are having the same nature and quality like the Supreme Lord. Prabhupada explains in this purport. That is why, because lotus flower is a combination of all these conditioned souls, that is why it's also being effulgent like Supreme Lord Vishnu or Supreme Lord Krishna, like that is described. And Prabhupada is making a point here also that Vaikuntha Lokas in spiritual sky, like Krishna explains in Bhagavatam, are self-effulgent. So they don't need a sun or a moon to light them, basically. Yeah, that is the point being mentioned here by Prabhupada in the purport here. So now, going to the, and then who came out, the first living entity who came out is Lord Brahma. He came out from the lotus that came out from Garbhodaksa Vishnu's body. Yeah, so that's what we learned from text 16. Going to text 17. So, interestingly, this, remember, earlier Supreme Lord was as Karnavasha Vishnu. From his pores, all the universes came out from his pores of his body. Then he entered each of the universe as Garbhodaksa Vishnu, we heard. Now, the same Supreme Lord who entered as Garbhodaksa Vishnu, now as a Paramatma or as Shirosha Vishnu, he entered the heart of Brahmaji, who came out as first living entity. Yeah. So that basically Supreme Lord is manifested as Purusha Avatars, these are called Karnasya Vishnu then Garbhodaya Vishnu, then now as Shirodaya Vishnu. So now as super soul, he entered Lord Brahma's body. Specifically, his heart is described. Now, because he entered Lord Brahma's heart, Brahma is endowed with intelligence, special intelligence to do, act, what it is meant to do, his purpose. So, he sparked his intelligence, and with that intelligence being invoked in Lord Brahma, he began to create the universe as it was before it's described. That means he has a template. He does the same things again, like that. Exactly as previously he created the previous day of Brahma, he creates the same way it seems. So even though this is the first day of Brahma, he creates as if he created in the previous life also. Exactly same template basically. So that's what Prabhupada is describing in the text 17. Text 17, he describes this, the Purushavasaras, Karnavasa Vishnu, Garbhodaya Vishnu, Kshirodaya Vishnu, and specifically he points out the point that Brahma is able to do the creation only because the Supreme Lord gave him this power to do it. Similarly, all of us, whatever intelligence we have, whatever ability we have to do things, it's only happening because of Supreme Lord's mercy on us, Supreme Lord's potency he invested in us. That's why we are able to do anything. That's the important lesson Prabhupada writes in the purport here. So that helps us as practicing devotees to always understand whatever we are able to do is because of Supreme Lord's mercy. When we understand that, then we are not overly proud of anything. And we don't have any superiority complex also because of that. And same thing inverse applies for inferiority complex also. When we understand Supreme Lord, whenever he wants us to do something, he will give the necessary resources, necessary, including the ability, whatever he needs to give us. That we understand. And whenever he doesn't need us to do some particular service, he will take away that particular ability like that. Then in that case, we are situated in proper consciousness, not a superiority complex, not an inferiority complex. Because we are seeing ourselves and whatever we have in relation to Krishna as property of Krishna. Like we are part and parcel of Krishna, whatever we have is also part and parcel of Krishna. When we see that relationship with Krishna, then we don't see ourselves as separate enjoyers, separate proprietors, uh, separate independent controllers like that. That is one key point Prabhupada is emphasizing in this particular purport. Another point Prabhupada is emphasizing in the purport is that Brahma is described as independent in this particular verse. So why is being described like that? Because Supreme Lord has given so much power to Brahma to create. That's why Brahma, as a representative of Krishna, is able to do powerful things as if like he's independent of Supreme Lord like that. That's why he's being indicated as independent in this verse that was Prabhupada is describing here. But in reality, Brahma is able to do whatever he is doing because of the power and intelligence that Supreme Lord himself gave him. That is an important principle for us to learn from here. And then, of course, the same theme is continuing that only because of Supreme Lord's intervention, actually, whether the primary creation continues and now secondary creation also is continuing. That theme we should remember always. That way we can never think that, oh, he's a Supreme Lord, Brahma is Supreme Lord, this demigod is Supreme Lord, like that we'll never think. Yeah. Now going to text 18. It is describing what is one of the first things Brahma did, which is also described in the same canto, third canto, in the 12th chapter also. First thing he created is from his shadow, he manifested the coverings of ignorance of conditioned souls. So, and those ignorance are 5 in number is described. Tamishra, Andhatamisra, Tamas, Moha, and Mahamoha. In the 12th chapter of this third canto, these descriptions are also given, and Prabhupada is kindly repeating that explanation in this purport also for us. So we'll go through them. Why is Brahma creating first ignorance? That is also Prabhupada covers it. Because we as living entities being part and parcel of Krishna, our natural tendency is to want to serve Krishna. Natural tendency is not to enjoy. Natural tendency is to serve Krishna. But through that service, we experience unlimited bliss and happiness. That's how we enjoy. But our initial inclination, natural inclination, is to serve Krishna. That's how we are experiencing the pleasure, whatever we are meant to have. But in the material world, because we came with a desire to enjoy separately from Krishna, which is not possible when I'm considering myself as part and parcel of Krishna, servant of Krishna. It's not possible to enjoy separately. That's why Lord Brahma is manifesting ignorance first, which we heard in the 12th chapter also, where he felt so bad, dissatisfied after creating the ignorance we heard. So we'll hear about what are these 5 types of ignorance, what is their function, what are they doing to us, like that we'll hear now. So the 5 types of ignorance, tamas is described first. Tamas is the darkness in self-knowledge or self-deception. What does that mean? That means we forget that we are the spirit soul, part and parcel of Krishna, servant of Krishna. That means our original identity as spirit soul and servant, we forget because of this tamas. That is a kind of covering of ignorance for us. So now that we forgot what is our real identity because of tamas, what happens next is, next layer of ignorance covers us. That is called moha. This moha is next cover of ignorance. What is it? Now that we forgot the real identity, we assume a material identity, that I am this material body, like that. That is the second kind of ignorance. So it's interesting to observe this. Then this helps us to understand how do we go back to our real constitutional position also through bhakti. Yeah. First we forgot our real identity because of tamas. Now we accepted an external identity as a material body or material mind sometimes with the covering of moha. That is the second thing that is happening. Now, after we are covered by this ignorance, the third ignorance covering is called moha. This mahamoha, because now I am identifying with this body. Now anything this body has in its possession, now I identify as mine. So including the relatives, family members, I consider it as mine. That is a mahamoya cover. This conception in scripture is commonly referred to as aham mameti. The aham conception, I am the body, is coming from moha, and the mameti conception is mine, the proprietorship of material things, is coming from mahamoha. Then once I am covered by, jiva is covered by mahamoha, then is covered by the next ignorance called tamishra, that is described here, tamishra. So this tamishra is making me want to enjoy what I think is mine, what I think is I am, which is body, what I think is mine, all the material possessions. I want to be situated in that enjoying position. But very soon, I will not meet with the full enjoyment. So then that leads to anger and frustration. That is what is happening because of tamishra. So now is also described as when someone comes in the way of our enjoyment, then also we become angry because we are attached to our enjoyment. If somebody comes in the middle of the enjoyment, then we become angry. That's also described with tamishra kind of ignorance. Then that leads to andhatamishra. Andhatamishra is described as unconscious state brought by the anger, where we this leads to atheistic conception. This is the worst thing that can happen to us. This leads to atheistic conception. Atheistic conception means there's no God in the picture. We think I only live in this body for this lifetime. After this lifetime is done, everything is finished. That means whatever I do in this life, I'm not accountable to anybody. That means people don't believe in, if I make do sinful activity now to enjoy, I have to suffer in the next life. They don't understand that. They don't believe it. Because of that, that is a severe covering of ignorance that is preventing them from to see that we are a soul beyond this body, and there's a consequence for every action that we are doing right now. So that is why many of the people, unfortunately, bereft of this knowledge, being covered by this ignorance, they act in ignorant ways, in hurting others, in hurting themselves also, because they're hurting their long-term future by engaging in sinful activity like that. That is this covering of ignorance. Basically, to summarize again, so tamas is the ignorance that is making us forget our real identity as spirit soul, part and parcel of Krishna, and servant of Krishna. And then moha is leading us to accept the material identity that I am this body. And then mahamoha is the covering of ignorance that's making us think that everything related to body is mine, so I need to enjoy like that. That mameti consciousness, aham mameti, me and mine consciousness is coming in terms of bodily conception of life. And then Tamisra is leading to uh, tendency to wanting to enjoy those positions, what I think is mine, the wanting to enjoy the material positions. And somebody blocks it, we get into anger towards them like that. And Andatamitra is the final covering of ignorance, which is making us forget the God in the picture. And we think this life is all in all and engage in all kinds of sinful activity with the atheistic mentality and attitudes. So that's how the Brahma created ignorance. In the 12th chapter, we heard actually Brahma was feeling sad. Oh my God, I created this ignorance that's covering all the living entities like that. But actually, he did it as a duty because otherwise, creation cannot function, material world cannot function, and we cannot function in this world. And why one of the purposes of material creation is for us to understand we are not fit for this world. We are actually meant to enjoy, be happy in association with Krishna. So that's why, as part of service, only he's doing. Yesterday, I think Kalakanda Prabhu was describing how Maya is also helping us. Maya, in one sense, is telling us this is a bad situation. You go back to there like that. Don't stay here like that. Similarly, we as devotees are also understanding how this material world is not a permanent suitable place for our happiness, whereas spiritual world is a permanent suitable place for happiness. Of course, this doesn't make us want to have uh, total negative attitudes towards material world and see everything as useless. Not That's not the intent. Intent is we have a permanent nature, permanent place to be situated in a natural position in happiness always. So while we are living in the material world, we need to recognize the talents and gifts that Krishna has given us and utilize them for serving others and serving the world, and more importantly, serving in the highest way to give others Krishna consciousness. And then we can go back to spiritual world, like using what we have today, not rejecting them, not rejecting the material world, rejecting material things, rejecting our material body, but utilize them properly in service of Krishna, so we can go back to the permanent happy position like that. Now, continuing on with the theme, with the 19th verse, this is a secondary creation that is happening. Brahma felt disgust with this ignorance that he created, and it's described he threw off this body. What is this body? Is described in the Acharya's commentary that this body is nothing but mentality of ignorance. That's what Brahma gave up. Vishnu Chakravarti says he cannot give up this body. He has whole 100 years of life to live. So this is just the mentality that is giving up. Mentality of ignorance is giving up. And from that, Yakshas and Rakshasas took possession of that ignorance body, it seems. Then that ignorance body manifested like night, it seems, which is the source of hunger and thirst, it is described. Prabhupada writes in the purport, or not in one, there's no purport for this, the next verse. So now, these Yakshas and Rakshasas, because the position of ignorance body, they were overpowered by hunger and thirst. And they ran after Brahma to eat him, spare him not, eat him up like that, because of their excessive hunger and thirst that they had. So now, in the purport, Prabhupada describes that these demons that are born from Brahma's body, were called of Yakshas and Rakshasas because apparently these Yakshas and Rakshasas are meaning Yakshas wanting to eat more like that. Rakshasas wanting to don't protect like that. Raksha means protection, right? Rakshasas means they're saying don't protect like that. They're wanting to eat him like that. So, uh, because of their behavior due to being born of mode of ignorance, they are called Rakshasas or man-eaters, it seems. That's what Prabhupada writes in the purport. In fact, other day I was hearing to one class by Gauranga Darshan Prabhu. He was making a distinction between demons or asuras and these Rakshasas and Yakshas. Apparently, demons are little higher class compared to Yakshas and Rakshasas. It seems. They are totally in ignorance, Yakshas and Rakshasas. That's what is being described here also. Now, that's what is covered in 21st verse. Yeah, Brahma is pleading with them, do not use me, but protect me. You are my sons, you was meant to protect me, like that there, he's asking it seems. So this is what I explained just now. Why they're called Yakshas and Rakshasas? Because they're wanting to eat him, not protect him like that. Now, text 22. Then uh, he created the chief demigods at this time, it seems, who were shining with the glory of mode of goodness, Satoguna. We commonly hear demigods are in mode of goodness and demons are in mode of ignorance, like that. So from the mode of goodness, now he created the demigods, it seems, and he dropped before them the effulgent form of daytime, which is made of Satoguna, and demigods happily took possession of it, whereas demons took possession of the night, Yakshas and Rakshasas, whereas demigods took possession of daytime is described. So in text to purport, Prabhupada is mentioning that demigods are born of the quality of goodness, like that. So when we hear in the seventh canto later on, how when goodness is more prominent, demigods are benefited, and when ignorance is more prominent, then demons are benefited, like that we'll hear in seventh canto. To when he's explaining how Lord is not partial with anybody. So text 23, of course, what makes it demigods, somebody a demigod or demon, is basically the mentality and attitude only. Because demigods are made of goodness and they want to be obedient to Supreme Lord. They want to follow the rules given by Supreme Lord. They want to follow the scriptures given by Supreme Lord. Whereas demons don't want to accept the supremacy of the Lord. They don't want to follow, be obedient to the laws of the Supreme Lord. That's the main difference. Even when we are following the principles of religion nicely, then we are exhibiting demigod qualities. But when we are going against the principles of religion, then we are exhibiting demonic qualities. That will be apparent in the next coming verses also. Now, this is another text 23 onwards. Here is describing text 23. Lord Brahma gave birth to demons now again from his backside buttocks, it seems. And they were very fond of sex life. And they were very too lustful also. That's why they did not see a difference between this is my father, this is like that. They actually approached Brahma himself lustfully for sex life, it seems. So in this purport, Prabhupada writes that demons are very fond of sex life. So actually, the more one is freed from sex desire, the more we are promoted to the level of demigods, Prabhupada writes. And the more we are inclined to enjoy sex, the more we are degrading ourselves, he says, like that, to demonic life. That means we need to be careful. And of course, this also comes with purification. Because the more we take up bhakti, these inclinations will slowly reduce for us. Then text 24 is describing how Brahma first laughed, seeing this, oh, they're approaching me for sex. He laughed because this is never he heard before. It's like unheard like that, seeing their stupidity. But then, when he understood the gravity of it, he felt and gravity of it because they're coming very, very close to him. Then he became little actually angry and fearful also at the same time. That's what is being described in 24th verse. So the point is, demons don't have respect even for father also. That's what Prabhupada is writing in the purport. So now the best thing Brahma as a father could do in this situation was to leave their company like that. So I think today is till 26 or 24. Let me see. Anybody remembers? Today was last verse.
26, Prabhu.
26, perfect. Thank you. So 25th verse. So he approached. Now, whenever demigods are in some danger, this is what they do. They approach the Supreme Lord. This is one more lesson we can learn. Always we need to keep taking shelter of the Supreme Lord and our circumstances that are beyond our control also. So he approached Supreme Lord. And how is Supreme Lord glorified? He bestows all boons, that means benedictions, and he dispels the agony of his devotees. It takes care of suffering of his devotees. And anybody who takes shelter of his lotus feet. So Supreme Lord is merciful like that, number one. Number two, this is the point Prabhupada is emphasizing in the purport. He manifests innumerable transcendental forms for the satisfaction of the devotees. Why is Supreme Lord coming in different forms? Only to please his devotees, to engage in loving relationship with the devotees, to give Krishna Katha for his devotees to talk about. And other aspect Prabhupada is emphasizing purport is innumerable. There are so many incarnations, it seems. We don't even know all of them. They're like waves in the ocean or sea, like that Prabhupada writes in purport here. So many incarnations are there. Another point Prabhupada makes. Another point Prabhupada makes is they're transcendental forms. That means just because Supreme Lord is coming in this world is not under the influence of material words like material modes like any one of us. Now, is not in the influence of goodness, passion, and ignorance like any one of us. Is beyond those modes like that. That's the other point Prabhupada is emphasizing in the purport for us in the 25th verse. So, yeah. And Prabhupada says, two more important points Prabhupada makes. One is that devotee has a particular inclination to worship one particular form of the Supreme Lord, not by imagination, by the forms that are described in scriptures. Then Supreme Lord will be inclined to manifest in that particular form for him like that. For Hanuman, he manifests as Lord Rama. For Arjuna, he manifests as Krishna like that. And similarly, Gaudiya Vaishnavas, we worship Radha Krishna or Rukmini Dwarakadesh like that, in that form of Krishna like that. So then he reciprocates with us in that particular form like that he is describing. And then he says, Brahma is approaching this form of Supreme Lord, who is a Kshirodaksha Vishnu, like that. Prabhupada is helping us understand that whenever Brahma is in trouble, he goes to Kshirodaksha Vishnu and he clears all the trouble for him also. That's what is describing 25th verse. So the last verse for today, Lord Brahma having approached Supreme Lord like that, what is he saying? How is he praying? He's saying, my Lord, please protect me from these sinful demons who were created by me under your order. That means while doing service for you, I got into trouble. Please help me to get out of this trouble like that. So whenever we are doing a service given by our superiors, when we get into obstacles, when we don't know what to do, we can approach the superior, how to get out of this, please help me like that. Then they can guide us how to overcome the obstacle, how to handle the obstacle with the right consciousness. Sometimes we may not be able to overcome all obstacles, but at least we can understand the right consciousness to carry while going through our service through those obstacles in life like that. So that's the other thing we can learn from here. So Brahma is saying they're infuriated by an appetite for sex and they come to attack me. They're attacking me. They're coming after me like that is praying. Prabhupada writes in the purport that it appears this homosexual tendency that we are seeing in this world now, Kali Yuga, was there in the original creation at that time also it appears. And it is a demoniac mentality like that also Prabhupada is writing. It's not for any sale male in ordinary course of life like that. Prabhupada is writing the purport for us. So we'll pause there. So we're continuing, we're going to hear the Brahma's secondary creation furthermore and how he took shelter of Krishna, how Supreme Lord protected him because he took shelter of Krishna like that. We will continue tomorrow. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. वाञ्छकल्पतरुभ्यश्च
कृपा
कृपासिन्धुभ्येव च
सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां
पतितानां
पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो
वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः. Thank you, devotees. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna.
Hare Ram, Hare Krishna.